This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Bangkok. Hello, Faye.
Hello, Alma. I am Faye Barta from your EBC Talent Bureau, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines.
Mga figures na
The Octa Research Group on Thursday said the COVID-19 reproduction number in the National Capital Region has decreased to 0.99 and continues to show signs of improvement.
A Malaysian man known as Ahmad Mustaqim Abdul Hamid has been sentenced to 15 years jail by a Somali military court in Mogadishu for assisting the Al-Shabaab terrorist group in the Horn of Africa country.
Indonesia approves a giant solar power link between Australia and Singapore after a $2.5 billion investment promise.
The direction of the economy.
The fourth ASEAN Inclusive Business or Business Summit demonstrated the practical application of inclusive business in the public and private sectors to help ASEAN build back better from the COVID-19 crisis.
First, here in the country, the Octa Research Group on Thursday said the COVID-19 reproduction number in the National Capital Region has decreased to 0.99 and continues to show signs of improvement. Octa Research Group fellow Guido David noted the decrease was from 1.03 reproduction number recorded from September 15 to the 21st. Take a look.
Mga figures na nakikita natin sa bansa natin, at least sa selected regions, ito masasabi natin yung reproduction number sa Metro Manila ay bumaba na less than 1, it's 0.99. Meron din tayong 1-week growth rate na minus 20%. Ibig sabihin, yung average na bilang ng kaso ngayong linggo, 4,600, mas mababa yan ng 20% kesa nung nakaraan na linggo na 5,800. So malaking binawas yan, 1,200 cases ang nabawas sa daily average natin, 7-day average. At hindi lang sa Metro Manila, sa Cavite rin, ang reproduction number, 0.87. Sa Laguna, 0.90 ang reproduction number, less than 1 na rin. Sa Bulacan, 0.86 ang reproduction number. Sa Cebu City, alam natin na less than 1 na, 0.66 ang reproduction number. At sa Davao City, nasa 1 na rin yung reproduction number. So hindi lang sa Metro Manila ang nakita nating improvement, pati rin na rin sa mga ibang regions, metropolitan areas sa buong Pilipinas. Ngayon pa man, syempre, gusto natin linawin na nagsisimula pa lang yung pagbaba ng bilang ng kaso. May kataasan pa rin yung bilang ng kaso, kaya kailangan pa rin patuloy pa rin yung pagsunod natin sa mga health protocols at may mga regions rin, USEC, na sa Region 2 na nagsisimula pa lang or tumataas pa lang yung bilang ng kaso. Kaya kailangan patuloy pa rin yung pag-iingat natin. Bawat isang tao, hindi na, well, 1 ang nahahawaan ng bawat isang taong may dala ng virus. So parang 1:1 pa rin, pero slightly less than 1 na yan. Ibig sabihin, bumabagal na yung pagkakahawaan. Pero syempre, kailangan pa rin patuloy yung pag-iingat natin na hospitals. Mataas pa rin yung cases natin sa hospitals. Kaya gusto natin ma-remind yung ating mga kababayan na mag-ingat tayo pa rin.
Now, here in Thailand, the government has pushed back plans to reopen Bangkok and some other major cities in foreign arrivals until November due to vaccination rates falling short of targets. Let's listen.
Also, there is the issue about the Q4 reopening of Thailand, the opening of Thailand in Q4, wherein Dr. Chwet San showed us a timeline, a calendar, particularly on Q4, which actually is from October to December. Now, there will be two approaches, which is the island approach, which has begun in Q3, and the inland approach, meaning provinces that are inland, which will start in Q4. This opening should be by the 1st of November through sealed routes. And in this island approach reopening in Q4, it will include Bangkok, most likely in Bangkok as well. But of course, this depends on the evaluation to that date. The Q4 reopening in the inland approach, aside from Bangkok, will include other provinces like Phetchaburi with the beach town of Hua Hin. It will also include Chiang Mai. And the theme for that opening would be Charming Chiang Mai. It would possibly include Pattaya, and the theme would be Neo Pattaya. Of course, the considerations are very important before that date in terms of the vaccine percentage and other consideration before this Q4 reopening begins. Now, in Pattaya, for example, the Pattaya mayor revealed that for the theme in Pattaya, which is Pattaya Moves On, the sandbox there is on track for opening. The other provinces that I mentioned are also planned for that date. And according to the TAT, the Tourism Authority of Thailand, the 5 provinces mentioned, except for Bangkok, are most likely ready for the opening. While Bangkok, we in Bangkok are aiming for reopening perhaps by the time that the numbers of the infections are lower and the considerations are made to be fully ready. So as
Meanwhile, Cuba agreed on Monday to provide Vietnam with 10 million doses of its own homegrown coronavirus vaccine named Abdallah, for which the Asian nation has given emergency approval. A deal was signed between the two countries during an official visit by President Nguyen Xuan Phuc to the communist island. The government, that is according to the government. Let's take a look.
Muchos acuerdos de cooperación han sido firmados en esta ocasión, se puede decir que es una visita muy exitosa.
Từ chính trị, đối ngoại cho đến kinh tế xã hội và đặc biệt lĩnh vực y tế.
En todos los ámbitos, de político, diplomático, económico, comercial y especialmente en esta ocasión de salud.
Abdallah ha sido avalada por la agencia reguladora vietnamita, que es justo decir también que hay una tradición de trabajo de la biotecnología cubana con la agencia reguladora vietnamita y con las empresas vietnamitas, porque también intercambiamos o comercializamos la vacuna recombinante contra la hepatitis B, la vacuna Kimihip. O sea que podemos decir que este proyecto es un proyecto de continuidad, lo que también de modernidad, porque todo ha ido evolucionando.
Now, the agreement concerns an initial 5 million doses, but Vietnam has already authorized the purchase of 10 million in total, according to Cuban media. On Saturday, Vietnam became the first foreign country to approve the emergency use of Abdallah, which Cuba is already using along with Soberana 02, another locally developed vaccine. The vaccines, the first developed in Latin America, have yet to undergo international scientific peer review. Cuban scientists say the jabs have been shown to be more than 90% effective at preventing symptomatic COVID cases, and they are based on recombinant protein technology, the same used by the USS Novavax and France's Sanofi inoculations. Under American sanctions since 1962, Communist Cuba has a long tradition of making its own vaccines dating back to the 1980s. Nearly 80% of its inoculations are produced locally. Meanwhile, Singapore will send 122,400 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine made by AstraZeneca and 200,000 antigen test kits to Thailand in a vaccine swap agreement. Now, Tani Sangrat, Director General of the Foreign Ministry's Information Department, said the cabinet resolved on September 21 to accept the 122,400 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine from Singapore under a bilateral agreement on a COVID-19 vaccine swap to mutually support disease control efforts. Under the agreement, Thailand will return the vaccine to Singapore later. Along with the vaccine delivery, Singapore will also donate 200,000 antigen rapid test kits and 500,000 nasopharyngeal swabs to Thailand. The vaccine and the medical supplies will arrive at the Suvarnabhumi Airport on September 25. Meanwhile, the Maldives Media Council, or MMC, has raised concerns over the provision of the evidence bill. Now, that evidence bill is about disclosing the sources of journalists. To tell us more about this bill, here's Steffi Diwan joining us live from the island nation of Maldives. Hello, Steffi.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon. Yes, Maldives Media Council, or MMC, has raised concerns over the provision on the evidence bill submitted to the parliament by the government, which stipulates that in some circumstances, journalists must disclose their sources in the articles they write. In a statement released by MMC, they noted that Article 28 of the Constitution stated that everyone has the right to freedom of the press and other means of communication, including the right to expose, disseminate, and publish news, information, views, and ideas, and that no one can be compelled to disclose the source of any information exposed, disseminated, or published by that person. However, MMC stressed that on the contrary, Article 136B of the Evidence Bill, which is currently up to debate at the Parliament, stipulates two special circumstances in which a judge can order journalists to disclose their sources during court proceedings. Hence, MMC said that if the bill is passed the way it is currently written, it is a clear violation of the freedom of press currently guaranteed by the Constitution, and that there is a possibility for the provision to be exploited in order to compel the disclosure of sources. MMC further added that a law being passed in a manner that violates the freedom of press would backtrack the progress the Maldives has made on the press, which could lead other nations to ostracize the Maldives. In concluding their statement, MMC called on the government and the parliament to omit the provision that concerns have been raised over from the evidence bill in light of the lesson learned previously from the sufferings of local media outlets and journalists at the time of the Defamation Act was in place. In addition to this, they also expressed their wishes to meet with the relevant Parliament committee regarding the matter. MMC also informed journalists and media outlets via statement that they had decided to do everything within their capability to resolve the matter. And that's my quick update from Maldives. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you very much, Steffi, for that update. You stay safe and have a safe weekend ahead.
Thank you so much, Alma, as always. But before I go, I would like to greet my father, Mr. Marvin Dihuan. A happy birthday. May God bless you, a good health, and keep you always safe no matter what. I love you and I miss you. Reporting live from Maldives, this is Steffi Dihuan, and we live in interesting times.
Now from Maldives, let's go over to Malaysia, where a theft case in Malaysia, one of the three Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission or MACC officers nabbed by the anti-graft agency in connection with the alleged theft of case materials. Let's hear more with Alfred Balmes of our EBC Malaysian Bureau. Hi, Alfred.
Hi, Pei. Good afternoon. According to Bukit Aman CID Director Commissioner Dato Siriap Halil, one of the 3 Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission officers na by the anti-graft agency in connection with the alleged theft of case materials amounting to more than 25 million Malaysian ringgit has been rearrested by police. He said the officer was arrested for drug and firearm possessions on September 21. In a statement on Thursday, September 23, the arrest was made in light of possessing drugs and firearms and bullets. The suspect has been remanded until September 25. On Monday, September 21, the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission had confirmed that 3 of its senior officers were arrested to assist investigation into allegation of abuse of power and malpractice in a case involving a former senior government servant who had been discharged but not acquitted by the court. It added that the 3 suspects had been remanded from September 14 to 19. A thorough investigation is underway in hoping all the parties will not speculate on this matter as it would affect investigations. The trio had alleged stolen confiscated money amounting to around $6 million or equivalent of 25 million Malaysian ringgit that was believed to belong to former Malaysian External Intelligence Organization Director General Datuk Hassan Abdul Hamid. That would be the quick updates here in Malaysia Pay.
Thank you so much, Alfred, for that quick update. You keep safe. Thank you.
Likewise, live reporting from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, this is Alfred Balmes. We live in interesting times.
Now, in other news, Filipinos are no longer required to wear face shields outdoors. President Rodrigo Duterte announced on Wednesday. President Duterte made the pronouncement as he approved the recommendation of the Technical Advisory Group, or TAG, to limit the use of face shield to the so-called 3Cs or 3SCs, which refers to closed and crowded spaces and activities that promote close contact. Let's take a look.
Pwede na tanggalin sa labas. No more face shields outside. Ang limitasyon, ang face shields gamitin mo 3Cs, closed, whatever facility, hospital, o basta magkadikit-dikit. Crowded, ganun rin. It's a crowded room, tapos close lahat, mas delikado, at saka ang close contact kung magkadikit-dikit ang tao. Other than that, I have ordered, kung ganun lang naman, sabi ko, then I will order that we accept the recommendation itong Executive Department.
Meanwhile, the National Task Force, or NTF, against COVID-19 is proposing to open the vaccination campaign for minors aged 12 to 17 years old by mid-October. In his report during the President's talk to the people on Wednesday night, NTF Chief and Vaccine Czar Carlito Galvez Jr. said the government can vaccinate about 12 million minors with the arrival of an additional 20 million doses in the first week next month. Galvez also cited the need to address vaccine hesitancy by using strategies on the family approach. Let's listen in.
So we are proposing, Mr. President, to open up the vaccination for children by mid of October. Kasi by the mid of October, may additional pa tayong 20 million na darating plus yung 23 million. Kayang-kaya na po natin vaccinate natin yung 12 million po na mga bata na 12 to 17. Pero ang recommendation po natin, mauna muna po yung may comorbidities at saka po yung mga anak po ng mga healthcare workers. And then also, we are also recommending na considering na malapit na po matapos ang ating vaccination target by December, by November po or even earlier, pwede na po nating i-open ang general public. Actually po, yung projection po natin dati, in fairness po sa ating mga A2 at saka A3, nabigyan na po natin sila ng time na, na magpabakuna. Kaya nakita po natin dito ang recommendation ng mga marami. Kailangan po talaga yung vaccination strategy natin para makuha po natin yung, yung ibang mga mayroong hesitancy is yung tinatawag nating family approach. Ibig sabihin, if we will secure our family and secure yung, yung tinatawag nating yung place of work, malaki po ang chances na bababa po yung kaso natin.
Now, in other news, Cambodia begins inoculating children as young as 6 against the coronavirus. Even though the World Health Organization has yet to approve a vaccine for under 12s, the grandchildren of Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen and other government officials were among the first youngsters to receive the Chinese Sinovac jab. Let's take a look.
Hai mìnhត្រូវចាត់ទុកថានេះជាការរត់ប្រណាំងលើបញ្ហាវាក់សាំងទេតែកម្ពុជាត្រូវមានកាតព្វកិច្ចការពារជីវិតពលរដ្ឋរបស់ខ្លួនហើយមានកាតព្វកិច្ចដើម្បីធ្វើឲ្យសង្គមសេដ្ឋកិច្ចត្រូវបានស្រាលឡើងវិញក្នុងរបបទាំងវិស័យអប់រំ
Now, almost 70% of the target population in Metro Manila has already been fully vaccinated, which means it is near the target of possible herd immunity for the population in the country's capital region. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, in his regular press briefing on Thursday, announced that the latest data that those fully vaccinated in the National Capital Region, or NCR, have reached 6,760,863, and that is 69.16% of the target population. Take a look.
So nationally po, ang ating first dose ay 30.18%, ang mga naka-second dose na ay 25.12%, at tumaas po ang ating daily jobs to 527,604. Sa Metro Manila naman po, ang ating first dose ay 8,323,130. Ito po ay 85.14% ng coverage ratio. At ang ating second dose po ay umabot na 6,760,863. Malapit na po sa 70%, nasa 69.16%. Tumaas po ang ating daily jobs, no, para sa Metro Manila, nasa 110,326 na po tayo.
Malacanang has earlier said that it was targeting to vaccinate 70% of the country's population against COVID-19 to achieve the so-called herd immunity.
Now, in other news, the Hanoi People's Committee decided to loosen COVID-19 restrictions from 6 a.m. of September 21st at the local as the number of local infections went down. The entire city is now placed under more relaxed social distancing rules in accordance with the Prime Minister's directive. And all 22 checkpoints at the city's gateways and 33 others at areas bordering neighboring provinces are maintained in order to control movement of people and vehicles. Now, the city will also maintain self-administered checkpoints at the entry and exit of residential areas to control people entering communities. And the municipal authorities asked the ministry to stop domestic commercial flights to the Noi Bai International Airport, as well as passenger trains to Hanoi. Public agencies are requested to allow 50% of their workforce to work from home or on ships. Conferences are allowed with the maximum number of participants, not more than 20 people in a meeting room. The city prohibits gathering of over 10 people outside offices, schools, and hospitals. Safe distance of at least 2 meters is mandatory at public places. Especially, the document loosens restrictions for hair salons, automobile and motorbike services, bookstores, building materials. Takeaway services are allowed to resume but stop operation before 9 p.m.
Now, if Hanoi has loosened some of its restrictions over in Laos, it has locked down its capital Vientiane and barred travel between COVID-hit provinces as cases soared to a record high. The mayor of Vientiane, where the bulk of the cases were detected, declared a strict lockdown on Sunday for 2 weeks, ordering residents to stay in their homes unless obtaining food, medicine, or making their way to a hospital. Travel between 7 other hard-hit areas or hard-hit provinces is banned, while entry into Vientiane requires a quarantine of 2 weeks. All public gatherings, even religious ceremonies, are also banned, as are activities including outdoor exercise and selling street food, according to state-run media KPL. The surge in cases over the weekend was linked to fresh clusters found in the country's garment factories, where the bulk of workers infected with the highly contagious Delta strain. According to the country's health ministry, it has administered more than 4.5 million vaccine doses, mostly Sinopharm donated from neighboring China, and the Pfizer-BioNTech jab obtained via the COVAX program for low-income countries. State-run media reported that any violation of Vientiane's lockdown would result in a fine of 3 million kip or $310, a punishing fee in a country where the annual income per capita is about $2,600. Meanwhile, scientists have discovered another clue to the origins of the virus that causes COVID-19, with bats living in the caves in Laos found to be carrying a similar pathogen that experts suggest could potentially infect humans directly. Take a look. Researchers from Francis Pasteur Institute and the National University of Laos said their findings showed that viruses genetically close to the SARS-CoV-2 virus exist in nature among bat species in the limestone caves of northern Laos, which neighbors China. Of the viruses they identified among the hundreds of bats tested in Vientiane province, there were found to closely resemble the virus that causes COVID-19, particularly in the mechanism for latching on to human cells. The idea was to try to identify the origin of this pandemic, according to Mark Elliott, who leads the Pasteur Institute's Pathogen Discovery Laboratory. Elliott, whose team analyzed the samples collected, said there were still key differences between the viruses found and SARS-CoV-2. But he said the work was a major step forward in identifying the pandemic's origin. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Faye and I will be back right after this break.
Bago magkaroon ng COVID-19 pandemic, maunlad ang industriya ng fashion design. Metropolitan cities hosted annual shows with designers and celebrities coming from all over the world. 2020 was supposed to be an exciting year for the industry. Ngunit nang magkaroon ng pandemya, ipinatupad ang lockdown sa iba't ibang lugar. Kanselado ang mga fashion shows at marami ring fashion shops ang nagsara. It has been almost 2 years since the outbreak of the COVID-19 crisis with no end in sight. So what will be the future of fashion design and fashion in general? In this episode, we'll find out more about the fashion design industry during the pandemic with our guests from the Fashion Designers Association of the Philippines, Mr. Gil Granado and Jonathan Pagatuan. All these in this episode of Open for Business.
Welcome back to the program. A Malaysian man known as Ahmad Mustaqim Abdul Hamid has been sentenced to 15 years jail by a Somali military court in Mogadishu for assisting the Al-Shabaab terrorist group in the Horn of Africa country. Now, the press attaché of Somalia's embassy in Malaysia, Abdimajid M. Osman, in a phone interview with Bermana on Thursday, September 23rd night, said that the sentence was read out by Colonel Hassan Ali Nurshuto, chairman of the Armed Forces Court. Now, however, under Somalia's justice system, Ahmad Mustaqim has the opportunity to appeal his sentence, according to Abdimajid further explained. Abdimajid told Bernama that Ahmad Mustaqim's court proceedings began in 2019 after his arrest that year, and that he was being treated well and receiving a fair trial according to Somalia's justice system. He said Ahmad Mustaqim is believed to have entered Somalia around 2009 or 2010. The Al-Shabaab, which is Al-Qaeda's most dangerous affiliate in the African continent, is also known for its high-profile attacks, such as the 2013 Westgate Mall attack in Nairobi in Kenya and numerous assassinations of Somali politicians and military officers.
Meanwhile, a U.S. judge has ordered Facebook to release the posts the social network removed over their role in inciting government-backed violence against the Rohingya people in Myanmar. In his ruling on Wednesday, Washington, D.C. District Court Judge Zia Faruqi criticized the company for refusing to provide the records to countries pursuing a case against Myanmar in the International Court of Justice. Facebook had resisted releasing the content on the grounds of U.S. privacy law, but the judge ruled that the deleted post would not be covered under the protections for users' personal communications. Locking away the requested content would be throwing away the opportunity to understand how disinformation begat genocide. Faruqi wrote in his ruling, saying Facebook taking up the mantle of privacy rights is rich with irony. Facebook has been accused of being slow to respond to abusive posts portraying Myanmar's Rohingya Muslims in subhuman terms, helping to drum up support for a military crackdown that forced more than 740,000 members of the persecuted minority to flee the country in 2017. In August 2018, United Nations investigators called for an international probe and prosecution of Myanmar's army chief and 5 other top military commanders for genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes.
Now, in other news, an Indonesian court has ruled in favor of environment campaigners that President Joko Widodo and other top officials had been negligent in protecting citizens, ordering the administration to clean up Jakarta's notorious air pollution. Let's take a look.
Ya mungkin berbeda tempat kali ya. Kalau daerah sini sih polusi kendaraan insya Allah aman gitu, nggak banyak asap kendaraan masih stabil lah gitu.
Terus kalau ada hakim tadi bikin keputusan seperti itu, mendukung atau biasa aja atau bagaimana?
Ya mendukung sih, cuma ya biar lebih bagus gitu. Iya.
Mengenai polusi sangat terganggu, soalnya gimana ya? Kepadatan kendaraan lebih banyak. Jadikan macet, polusinya tidak bagus.
The capital and its surroundings form a megacity of about 30 million people, which routinely ranks among the most polluted cities in the world. And experts have warned for years about the threat posed by Jakarta's smog to the health of residents, especially to the children. A group of 32 activists and citizens impacted by pollution had filed the lawsuit 2 years ago, accusing President Widodo as well as his ministers for health, home and environment, and the governor of Jakarta of negligence over the state of the city's environment. And the officials were found to have violated the law, preceding Judge Saifuddin Zuri of the Central Jakarta District Court said, ordering them to tighten environmental regulations and enforcement. They asked the officials to especially crack down on the polluted or pollution generated by vehicles and the coal-fired power plants around Jakarta, including with sanctions for violations. The judges also told authorities to improve air monitoring systems and make pollution data public. The petitioners had not asked the court for any monetary compensation.
Back here in the country, in the pandemic news, passports for pickup at the Department of Foreign Affairs ASEAN will be released at the Double Dragon Plaza in Pasay City starting September 24. The DFA in its advisory on Thursday night said passports would be released at Islas Pinas in Double Dragon from Mondays to Fridays, except public holidays from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. DFA ASEAN is currently getting long lines of applicants following the transfer of appointments from consular offices in Metro Manila to the main office after some of its personnel tested positive for the coronavirus. The situation was aggravated by the large number of applicants who were personally picking up their passports at the ASEAN following the severance of relations with DFA's courier service provider. To date, over 2,000 passports were rendered undeliverable due to the erroneous addresses or lack of authorization letters from applicants who were not personally present at their declared addresses. These passports were then turned over to the DFA for release to the applicants themselves.
Staying in the Philippines, the food service sector is asking the government to ease the vaccination requirement for their employees under the alert level system, as many still find it difficult to secure COVID-19 shots. Now, the restaurant owners of the Philippines, President Eric Tang, said at the Laging Handa briefing on Wednesday, said that not all restaurants may be able to comply. Let's take a look.
Ang habol lang naman po namin ay daan-daan pagbubukas dahil hindi naman po kami nag-aangad na bilisan po natin ang pag-reopening dahil kailangan din po namin intindihin ang problema po ng ating mga ICU at ating mga medical frontliners. Kahit dahan-dahan lang po kami mag-open, happy na po kami. Kahit 10% lang po naman ngayon, it's better than zero, pero matagal pa po yan bago kami makapagbawi at maging normal. Kaya sana kung talaga po namang tama ang datos na nagiging stabilized na po yung ating COVID cases, ay sabay po sana nating pag-relax po ng restrictions at pag-increase po ng capacity ng restaurants. Well, nakakaawa din po kasi mga empleyado ng restaurant. Marami rin pong hindi nakapagbakuna dahil sa lugar nila hindi pa po sila natatawagan or naka-partial vaccination pa lang sila at iniintay po nila yung second dose. Lalo na po kung yung Sputnik medyo matagal pong iniintayan ng second dose. Kaya sana naman po maintindihan at mabalanse din natin ang problema ng restaurant industry. Gusto naman ng karamihan na makapagbukas ng bakunado ang staff. Kaya lang po yung ibang lugar po talagang mga empleyado sa mga barangay nila nahirapan po sila makakuha ng vaccine. Yun naman po mga restaurants na nagkikater naman po talaga sa vaccinated. Hinahanap po ng customers namin right now. Pag nalaman nilang vaccinated ang staff, papasok po talaga sila at nagtatanong pa kung vaccinated ba yung staff namin o hindi. So siguro ngayon lang naman po, kailangan po natin siguro ng konting tulungan, compromise para lang po malagpasan po natin itong alert level 4.
Based on the latest guidelines, indoor and outdoor dine-in capacity for restaurants are allowed at 10% and 30% capacity under Alert 4, respectively, given that their workers are fully vaccinated. The indoor dine-in services are only allowed for fully vaccinated customers. While Mr. Tang appreciated the 10% indoor capacity, he is looking forward to when the alert level is brought down to Alert 3 to allow more operations.
In other news, the Malolos-Clark segment, or Phase 2 of the North-South Commuter Railway, or NSCR, of the Philippine National Railways is now 32% complete and is on track to be completed in 2024. In a laging handa briefing on Monday, DOTR Undersecretary for Railways Timothy John Batan said the NSCR Phase 2 began construction this year. Take a look.
Sa kasalukuyan ay meron tayong 32% na overall progress rate para sa PNR Clark Phase 2 at inaasahan natin na yan ay matapos yung kabuuan mula Manila hanggang Clark by year 2024, Yusek. Itong tinatawag natin na North-South Commuter Railway ay merong haba na 147 kilometers. Meron niyang 35 na mga stasyon at yan ay magdadaan sa 25 sa 25 na mga cities and municipalities mula sa Clark International Airport hanggang Calamba. Kinabibilangan yan ng tatlong yugto, tatlong segment. Nandiyan ng PNR Clark Phase 1 na ongoing construction na mula pa noong 2019. Nandiyan ng PNR Clark Phase 2 na nag-umpisa ng construction earlier this year. At nandiyan din ang PNR Calamba na mag-uumpisa naman ng construction by next year. So suma total, yung NSCR natin o ang North-South Commuter Railway ay gagawa ng 25,000 na mga direct jobs. At sa Clark Phase 2 pa lang ay 7,000 jobs na ang magagawa at direct pa lang yan. Ibig sabihin yung mga trabahador natin, wala pa dyan yung mga indirect jobs na tinatawag na magmumula doon sa economic activity na isasagawa o na madidudulot itong proyektong ito.
He also said the NCR is expected to provide a total of 25,000 direct jobs. Once operational, the journey from Malolos, Bulacan to Clark, Pampanga is seen to cut down to 30 to 35 minutes from the previous 1.5 hour or 1.5 to 2 hour drive and will be part of the country's first airport express service.
Now, in a related news, the Japan-funded North-South Commuter Railway Extension, or NSCRX, project has been begun construction, and the Japanese Embassy in Manila said on Tuesday. Last September the 18th, Ambassador Koshikawa Kazuhiko personally joined Transportation Undersecretary Timothy Batan and ADB Director General Ramesh Subramanian during a joint site inspection of Clark International Airport Station in Pampanga, marking the start of construction for the NSCR extension project. And the two extension lines will be constructed under NSCRX, the 51-kilometer north extension that runs from Malolos in Bulacan to Clark International Airport in Pampanga, and the 55-kilometer south extension from Solis, Manila, and to Calamba, Laguna. Apart from alleviating traffic congestion, the embassy said the project aims to mitigate the effects of pollution and climate change by using Japan's energy-efficient trains. NSCRX is jointly financed by the Asian Development Bank, or ADB, and the Japanese government through the Japan International Cooperation Agency.
The Philippines is set to host the World Travel and Tourism Council, or WTTC Global Summit, in March next year. That according to the Department of Tourism, officially announcing this last Tuesday. The event was supposed to be held in the Philippines in October this year, but was moved to 2022 due to global travel restrictions. In a presser on Monday, Tourism Chief Bernadette Romulo Puyat said the interagency task force has approved the hosting of the event, considering the stringent health and safety protocols that would be put in place before and during the summit proper. Around 800 delegates, composed of leaders from the largest and most prominent international travel and tourism companies from airlines, hotels, resorts, travel agencies, and tour companies are expected to attend the event with over 30,000 people participating virtually. The WTTC Global Summit is widely considered the most influential event for travel and tourism professionals and stakeholders, providing opportunities for industry leaders to meet with policymakers and address the most pressing issues faced by the industry.
Alma and I will be back after this short break.
Mapupuno ng saya, impormasyon at inspirasyon ang hapon mo sa Afternoon Power. Handog sa inyo ng Net25. Sasabay sa inyong tanghalian ang inyong Happy Time Barkada at 12 noon. Alamin ang mga pangyayari sa ASEAN nations, ASEAN in Focus at 2 p.m. Ang inyong paboritong awit komentaryo kasama si Leo Obligar sa Piskante ng Bayan. At mga balita sa iba't ibang panig ng bansa, hatid sa atin sa Aguila Probinsya. Siksik ang hapon mo mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, ang inyong Afternoon Power sa Net25.
Good vibes kada umaga to get you through your day with a happy heart.
Ang trabaho naman talaga ng maritime group ng PNP is to enforce the maritime
Tayo
laws.
lang yung stricto, pero in other parts of the country, pwede na naman ang tourism.
Definitely, we are ready to respond to a possible spike.
Sapagkat ang aming intensyon ay makatulong lang sa mga tao na wala talagang magamit na gamot.
92 voted for this resolution, which will make it stronger, calling on the Justice Department to come up with more stringent ways to be able to avert these hate crimes against Asian Americans.
Mas marami po tayong magagamit ngayon na mga tools or mga equipment.
Maraming salamat, Weng, at sa buong puwersa ng Balitalakayan sa pagkakataong ito.
Tatalakayin ang mga pangunahing balita live sa teleradyo ng Net25 at Radyo Aguila DCEC 1062. Kasama si Weng de la Fuente sa...
At itong Balitalakayan, we live in interesting times.
Welcome back to the program. Indonesia approved a giant solar power link between Australia and Singapore after a $2.5 billion US dollars investment promise. This is according to the authorities on Thursday. Southeast Asia's largest economy has agreed to allow Sun Cable's Australia Asia Power Link or AA Power Link route through Indonesian waters and approved the undersea survey permit. Coordinating Minister of Maritime and Investment Luhut Binsar Panjaitan told a virtual press conference in Jakarta that they expect this project and they will have a sustainable impact for the economy through various procurement programs that will benefit the industry and the government's revenue. AA Power Link will generate solar electricity from one of the world's biggest solar farm projects and transmit it from Darwin to Singapore starting in 2028. The project is expected to supply up to 15% of Singapore's electricity needs and reduce the country's emissions by around 6 million tons annually. The company will not be supplying renewable energy directly to Indonesia, but promise around $1 billion in direct investments on procurement of equipment and services, and an additional $1.5 in operational spending over the life of the project.
Meanwhile, the fourth ASEAN Inclusive Business Summit demonstrated the practical application of inclusive business in the public and private sectors to help ASEAN build back better from the COVID-19 crisis. In collaboration with the ASEAN Business Advisory Council, or ASEAN BAC, ASEAN aims to highlight good practices through the ASEAN Business Awards in November this year, which will recognize 10 inclusive businesses with the ASEAN Inclusive Business Awards. Take a look.
Direction of the economy. This inclusive business is like an iceberg. So what I heard today, Duke and Faye, is as if they belong to the tip of the iceberg. So those who are championing IB and social enterprises. But what the council sees is, how do you transform those who are underneath the tip of the iceberg, the 75%? How do you convince them, or what will make them advocate the principles of inclusive business? Because as mentioned, this is a strategy that precisely should make you viable. At the end of the day, there's profit, because that's the number one responsibility of any business, to create economic value. Having a platform where they can share experiences, and from there, Asianize. So also getting the advice and inputs from our knowledge partners and strategic partners, our dialogue partners like you, Max, OECD, and so on, everybody, so that we could deepen inclusive business and make it as part of the new normal. So since this is our fourth ASEAN Inclusive Business Summit, we are looking forward to the fifth, wherein we could really launch that platform. Now, from the ASEAN Business Council side, we have established what we call ARIBA. This is the ASEAN Responsible and Inclusive Business Alliance. Companies who have bought into the principle and wants to do more and wants to multiply. But I guess a missing link in our model is we need to have precisely now the captains of the industries, the big boys, the conglomerate, because at the end of the day, they provide a demand. So we want to make sure that companies look at themselves to rebrand themselves as IB. Now, branding is a big game in business. How do you sustain a platform where it can continually impact on people and give them a sense of fulfillment and of accomplishment, that they're really making a difference, but through the help of branding campaigns, media, social media, and so on?
I can see a lot of bridges that can be built with inclusive business. So going back to your question, Max, first of all, I think we have to understand that building, the policy environment is extremely local. It's very context sensitive. We have to take into consideration the needs of the stakeholders in each and every country. That it doesn't mean that we cannot build communities, and the ASEAN is doing it very well. It's building a community of states that are working together on creating these enabling environments and trying even to start with something that's probably even here in Europe we heard about last week, which is mutual recognition. Meaning, can we create certifications that could be mutually recognized across countries so that transnational inclusive business could grow? So that's one question. The ecosystem approach. Well, the ecosystem approach is basically just to take the whole policy ecosystem as a whole and not to tackle just one bit of the problem on its own. You have to start, first of all, by raising awareness about what inclusive business is. I mean, we here as somehow an expert audience know what inclusive business is, know what social enterprises are. But the wider public, a lot of official policymakers still don't know what these concepts are about.
Now, Brunei Darussalam, the ASEAN Chair 2021, hosted the summit, which was co-organized by Darussalam Enterprise, or DARE, ESCAP, IBAN, OECD, and the ASEAN Secretariat. The summit was attended by the government and the private sector representatives from ASEAN and beyond, investors and development organizations. As the incoming chair of ASEAN, Cambodia had also announced the 5th ASEAN IB Summit to be organized next year. The summit was an activity for the ASEAN Coordinating Committee on Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises, or ACC-MSME, the sectoral body under the ASEAN Economic Community Pillar coordinating MSME development in the region, and contributed to the implementation of the ASEAN Strategic Action Plan for SME Development 2016-2025.
In a related news, the ASEAN community and its Free Trade Agreement, or FTA, partners are on course to enforce one of the biggest economic trade pacts by earlier next year. And the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, said this on Wednesday. Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez said the parties of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership are looking forward to implementing the mega trade deal, as this will facilitate further cross-border business activities. Let's take a look.
We signed the RCEP agreement last year together with 14 of our FTA partners after 8 years of extensive negotiations. This is an ASEAN-led mega free trade deal, and the signing of the agreement demonstrates that the participating countries remain committed to keep their markets open for trade and investment under a stable and predictable environment despite the challenges brought by the COVID-19 pandemic and geopolitical tensions. President Rodrigo Roa Duterte has also highlighted its importance in his talk before the ASEAN Summit, saying the agreement will bolster regional economic integration and strengthen supply chain connectivity to boost our post-pandemic economic recovery. RCEP, as it will be explained later, is a historic FTA because it is the biggest trade agreement in the world, accounting for 30% of the world's population, 28% of the global GDP, and 28% of the world's total trade. The ASEAN and its FTA partners also remain on track to implement the agreement by January 1, 2022. Among the expected benefits of RCEP is an improved market access on goods, services, and investment. In 2020, the group of countries in the partnership represents 51% of Philippine exports, 68% of Philippine imports, and 58% of Philippine investments.
So, RCEP agreement consists of a lot of items, but I will just focus on the reduction of trade barriers on all tradable commodities within RCEP. Within RCEP from 2021 to 2030. When I say barriers, it's the gradual elimination of tariffs and a 50% reduction in NTNs, non-tariff measures.
MSMEs and their inclusion in the GVCs. Having one set of simplified rules in trade will facilitate trade transactions and will reduce administrative costs for exporters. In the process, this will encourage more production and manufacturing activities in the country. That will encourage companies to invest more in the ASEAN region, including the Philippines, that will build supply chains and services. This means more jobs and business opportunities for the Philippines.
Meanwhile, an official of the Department of Trade and Industry said the Philippines and South Korea are now finalizing the bilateral free trade agreement, or FTA, and aim to conclude the trade deal next month. We are now also in the final stages towards concluding the FTA with Korea. Hopefully, this can be done in time for the ASEAN-Korea Summit, which will happen towards the end of October. That, according to USEC Seferino Rodolfo, during the virtual 2021 European-Philippine Business Summit. Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency agency earlier reported that South Korea was expanding FTAs with emerging countries in Southeast Asia like the Philippines, Cambodia, and Indonesia, as well as Latin American nations, to reduce its reliance on major economies in terms of trade. Manila and Seoul agreed to pursue the FTA in 2019 to improve market access for goods and services. The two countries have trade pacts through regional deals such as the ASEAN-Korea FTA and the newly concluded Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP.
Finally, in our news, the European Union or EU delegation in Manila is set to open its 2021 one-stop shop for Filipinos aspiring to study in European universities. Going viral this year, the European Higher Education Fair is expected to reach more Filipinos with more higher education institutions participating in the event from October 1 to October 2. A total of 140 colleges and universities from Belgium, the Czech Republic, Germany, Ireland, Spain, France, Italy, Hungary, and the Netherlands, and even Austria, Poland, Finland, and Sweden were tapped to join the event. EU Ambassador to the Philippines, Luc Veron, said, through this fair, the EU wants to give Filipino students access to information about pursuing their higher education in European universities, institutes, and colleges. We also want to underscore the importance of mobility, innovation, partnerships, and lifelong learning. And the event will also serve as a virtual information hub for Filipinos who want to avail of financial support through the Erasmus Mundus and an EU scholarship program that has already sent 65 Filipino students to Europe in 2021 alone.
Thank you very much, Faye, for keeping me company today. This Friday, you have a safe week ahead of you.
Yeah, you keep safe also there in the Philippines, Alma. This is Faye Barte once again from your Thailand Bureau, and that is the latest news around ASEAN region. And we'll live in interesting times.
We'll see you back on Monday, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.